Alright folks, so I'm out on a wee walk. I've been up here before, Blackcastle Hill. It's an old Bronze Age iron fort. However, I've never actually been towards... There's another sort of hill opposite it, Cocklaw Hill. So I'm just out on a wee circuit. I've decided to talk about the condition I've been living with for the past 11 years. It's something I don't really talk about, I know I'm a bit like the majority of men, you know, you just sort of get on with it. But I suppose in a way it's good to talk and it's good to raise awareness. So 11 years ago, back in August 2012, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. So MS is a neurological condition that causes damage to your nervous system, your brain and your spinal cord. So what's happening in MS is there's a substance called the myelin sheath that helps protect the nerves and helps messages travel smoothly and quickly throughout your nervous system. In MS, people with MS, what's happening is your immune system is thinking this myelin sheath is a foreign body and is actually attacking it. So it's also leaving scars and inflammation in the form of lesions. So messages are now travelling throughout the nervous system, get slow and disrupted, causing a wide range of symptoms. So experts don't know why this happens. They say it's a combination of genetic and environmental factors. In the case of me, my granddad had MS and one of my cousins has got MS as well, so although they say it's not hereditary, I think you've got a higher risk if it's in your family. The environmental factors, I think they're linking it to vitamin D. Scotland has got the highest rates probably in the world, along with North America, Scandinavia countries, further away from the equator. There's also places in Australia and New Zealand that have got high rates. When I was diagnosed, it was like, yeah, you'll need to sort of take high strength vitamin D. I think the majority of people in Scotland need to take vitamin D because we just don't get enough. Had a nice chat with the farmer and his two lovely collies, wee Foss, lovely wee dog, proper like rolling about, wanting attention. The other one was just focused on the sheep. The farmer said this pile of stones used to be a watchtower, and I was mistaken earlier, it's not a Bronze Age fort, it's an Iron Age fort. So my experience with MS was, I'll take you back, it was actually August 2011. I remember I woke up one morning and I just had a strange burning sensation in my feet. It was weird, I just sort of thought, what the hell is this? But I got on with my day, went out in the piss that evening, went to see the comedian Russell Kane at the Edinburgh Festival at Pleasance. Met Bianca and a few folk, a few pals. Thought nothing of it, just burning sensation in my feet all day. Wasn't till the next day morning I woke up then I knew something wasn't right. I was numb from the waist down, and I just thought, nah, something's not right here. Cue the doctor's appointment. Well, it ended up being various doctor's appointments over the few months. What happened was, it was like when I was walking, because my feet and my legs were numb, I couldn't walk very far, it just felt so uncomfortable. Hiya pal. I also had, it was like what I know now is called the MS hug. It was like somebody tightening a belt around my waist, and it just felt so uncomfortable. So I think it was over the course of a few months I had various doctor's appointments. He said might have been probably a damaged a nerve of some sort, you know. Then I think it was at my third appointment when I was like, look, I've got a family history of MS. He was like, it's possible but highly unlikely. Eventually I got an appointment with a neurologist, MRI scan of the brain and the spine, and yeah, that was it. It was one doctor who just said to me, yeah, we think it's MS, the MS nurses will be in touch, and that's it. After I was diagnosed, you know what I mean, I was depressed for a wee while. It wasn't too long actually. I remember I was more sort of highly strung, anxious and depressed before I got diagnosed, because I just never knew what the hell was wrong with me. It was more a sort of a relief, could you say? I was always just a bit like, well, I kind of sort of know what MS, but not really. Will I end up in a wheelchair? Will I be able to go hill walking again and stuff? It never took me long before I was like, right, okay, I've got MS, let's try and do something about it. You know, it's an inflammatory disease which research different medications, you know, foods, diets, supplements, let's just see if it can benefit me. And I found a book called Overcoming MS. It was a Professor George Jelinek. He's Australian, he's actually got MS himself, so he's sort of brought in a lot of medical literature, and you know, it's more of a sort of lifestyle. So those familiar with the A1 will sort of recognise this hill up on the right hand side. You've got a distant Dunbar, there's the cement works, Barnes Nest Lighthouse, Torness Power Station, down the Berwickshire coast. No struggle with 4G up here. So that's Blackcastle Hill. And somewhere over there is a trig point for Cocklaw Hill, which will I make my way over. My way towards Cocklaw Hill should just be directly this way, where I should find the trig point. You certainly get a nice view of the Lammermuirs up here. The trig point is not the highest point. If I'm ever bagging local trig points, then why not? So I've got what's called relapsing remitting MS. That's the most common type, where you get your symptoms, they can come and go, they can get worse, they fade over time, they disappear completely, even for 10, 20 odd years. So there's not enough evidence for any specific diet recommended for folk with MS, but there was one that interested me, Dr. Royce Wank. He studied people with MS in the 1940s, and what he found was, particularly in Norway and Canada, people with the highest rates of MS, you know what I mean, were living in the countryside and the mountains, whereas those with the lowest were living in the coastal towns. So I'm guessing that was down to maybe the protective nature of omega-3 in the fish. I don't know. But he sort of devised a diet which is like low in saturated fat, which I tend to follow sort of as much as I can. You know, I try and avoid processed foods and dairy and stuff that I've sort of tried. I think it's helped. It's like meditation, qigong, tai chi, you know, Pilates, yoga and stuff like that. Everything like that will sort of benefit your mind and your body. So in the past 20 years there's been a vast improvement in the number of treatments people have with MS. So they're not exactly a cure, but they slow down the rate of progression, and they're called disease modifying drugs, DMDs. I'm on my third one now. I first was on one for 5 to 6 years called Avonex. It was a weekly injection, gave me like flu-like symptoms for about a day. Then I stopped that to go travelling for our honeymoon, came back and was on a drug called Tecfidera. That was 2 tablets a day. A bit better, but the side effects, I was getting a lot of gastrointestinal side effects. Also, it was reducing my low white blood count, so sometimes I was having to get my blood checked quite regularly, and I was picking up a lot of infections. COVID came along as well, and I just thought, nah, just get me off this drug, you know. So I was off DMDs for a couple of years, and then they recommended I go back on one, so I'm on one now called Plegriday, which is I take an injection once every 2 weeks. In terms of my mental health, probably getting out in the outdoors is probably the most beneficial thing for me. Even before I was diagnosed, I was, you know what I mean, into the hill walking. Did my first Monroe back in 2007, but since I was diagnosed, I've been out and about a lot more. My main man, Robin, we've had some cracking adventures together, as well as my good pal Stevie for school. Good few. We done our first 2 Monroes together. Other good hill walking pals, Lee, Stevie, Greg, loads to name. Anxiety is one of the biggest, you know what I mean, things I suffer from. Just sort of health anxiety, you know. Even in my early diagnosis, I was going up the hills and I was probably a wee bit anxious in case I got no well. Then I thought, what if mountain rescue are like, what are you doing walking up the hills if you've got that condition? But I kind of think like that. I remember back in the day, early in my diagnosis, I'd had a lot of back pain. As soon as I got on the walking boots, boom, I was up the hills and I just did not feel pain whatsoever. It was so bizarre. Lastly, I would just like to say folk knock the NHS, but I think folk with MS are a bit lucky, as well as those with other neurodegenerative diseases. We have the Anne Rowling Centre. J.K. Rowling donated 10 million to build this purpose-built It's an Edinburgh University research facility, so they're doing cutting edge research into finding cures for not just MS but MND, you know, Parkinson's and other neurodegenerative diseases. And they also host clinics. And so my MS nurses as well are just a phone call away, you know, if I've got any problems. I'm also get regular yearly MRI scans on the brain, you know. So I'm definitely optimistic for the future, you know. There's all sorts of drugs coming out that probably will one day stop MS and stop other, you know, diseases. So in the meantime, we've just got to keep getting out and about and enjoying the hills. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.